to goal. Can you believe it? It's extraordinary.
Don Pyke faces huge questions over his coaching style, and have Port Adelaide gotten ahead of themselves? Bernie Vince perhaps needs to apologise to someone, and Malcolm Blight set to join us. A massive edition of Footy SA coming up right now. Good evening and welcome to your home of South Australian footy, Footy SA, and Bernie Vince is along for the ride. As always, Bernie, another disastrous week.
Not a great weekend, is it, for SA footy, but back on the horse next week.
Let's dive into exactly what went wrong with our Kia big moments for the V6 twin turbo Kia Stinger. Now, this was voted the Western Australian Car of the Year. It's a magnificent machine. We'll start with Adelaide. And just some of their errors on Saturday night against the Kangaroos had to be seen to be believed, Bernie. How do you explain some of these costly errors that they made?
Well, I'd like to blame the rain, the wind, the weather, but the roof's shut at Marvel, so they can't get away with this. A highly skilled outfit, you'd say, if you were describing Adelaide to someone that didn't know footy. But on Saturday night, they were nothing. There was just nothing that I've seen Adelaide do.
It was amazing because coming into the season, we all thought they'd be one of the more highly skilled teams in the competition. What they did in 2017 was extraordinary. They were the most attacking side in the competition, #1 for scoring. They're now last for scoring. They had 36 entries on Saturday night. You would absolutely hate to be a key forward at Adelaide.
Still using sort of high possession footy, but they're not going forward with the ball. As you mentioned, in 2017, when they were one of the best sides in the comp, or the best side for the majority of the year, that slick ball movement is just non-existent now. They seem to be going sideways, and yeah, it wouldn't be great to be a forward at Adelaide at the moment.
No, it wouldn't be. And one of them that is suffering is Josh Jenkins. Now, he's always a polarising figure amongst Adelaide fans, but his form this year has been poor. And it's things like this that are hurting him. I mean, that's a set shot 25 metres out, pretty much directly in front. He misses that. We'll see another one that he misses on the left, but he's a player void of all confidence.
Yeah, you need to cash in on them, don't you, when you're a key forward? When you get opportunities to have set shots at goal within 30 metres, and I mean, one of them was 2 metres out, the left foot snap, and he'd kick that probably 19 times out of 20. Yeah, disappointing. But the more it's, you know, we spoke about him last week about playing from behind. He just looks like he's lacking a little bit of confidence at the moment, so he needs to get back to training hard and attacking the footy in the air.
So Don Pyke dropped your man Bryce Gibbs last week, made a huge selection statement, didn't get the response that he would have liked. Where to now? It's round 4. Does he need to go with another big name like Jenkins, or do you stick with him? Well,
that's the discussion, isn't it? The more putting Gibbs out of the team was more of I guess, a kick up the backside for the other guys that didn't go out of the team. So when he doesn't get that response, what do you do? Like, it is a tough one. You can't be dropping everyone, but I'll be a little bit nervous if I was some of the senior players at Adelaide at the moment not performing.
And one of those is the skipper, Taylor Walker, no doubt, was quiet again by his standards. Now, 2 weeks ago, you said this about David King.
Tell you what, Kane, I'm going to jump straight to the gun. I'm not sure where we had worst on ground, but David King, you are the worst on ground this week. What a shocking... Was he watching the game? I thought he was within the probably the Crows' best 5, and I think he competed. He brought the ball to ground. You've got to remember, it was wet and slippery up there in Sydney, so I think he was very serviceable, and his leadership out in the ground was fantastic.
Since then, Bernie, your mate hasn't fired a shot. Do you owe David King an apology?
No, I'm not going to apologise, Kane.
Come on, be the bigger man.
I'm not going to apologise because I was talking about the Sydney game in particular, not the way we judge him week in, week out. And, I mean, he had a pretty poor game, I guess, on Saturday night. But so to answer your question, no, I won't be apologising. But he would be feeling a bit of pressure, especially being a captain of that footy team, and who players look to in big moments. So, yeah, under a little bit of pressure, the big Texan.
Very stubborn. Now, I'd love to see Tex, if he's having a quiet moment in the forward line, go up on the wing. Get involved like Pavlich, like Jonathan Brown used to do. Nick Rewalt used to go on the wing. He's a beautiful field kick. We saw that on Saturday night. Why can't he do that and impose himself on the game, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes? Does he have that licence, or should he?
He can. He probably doesn't have the licence to do it, but I think he should. He's one of the best runners. When I was back in Adelaide, his time trials were outstanding. He works really hard for a big man. So maybe that's a way to get him into the game, because defenders won't be able to go with him, big defenders. So, and they might let him go, so that might get him into the game. And his game is, evolves around confidence as well. So getting touches of the footy might help him. But I'd let him get up the ground a bit. That'd be
Some
good.
big questions to answer for Walker and the Crows, but also over at Port Adelaide as well. They lost the unlosable game on the weekend. This is a Richmond side that's basically their VFL side, missing all the big names and some other depth players as well. This was late in the game. The mistakes they made, entries 19-8 in the last quarter, they continued to waste the footy and it cost them the game.
Some uncharacteristic errors from good players too in the Port Adelaide lineup. I mean, you say it's the unlosable, it's such an even competition, but those guys obviously were hungrier to come in. They haven't had a lot of opportunity, the guys in, the second tier players at Richmond, so they sniffed an opportunity and really took it on Saturday. So, I mean, yeah, disappointing because we thought it was a real opportunity for both sides to make a statement on the competition. And both sides have let us down, mate.
Absolutely, and Port Adelaide off to Perth for the toughest trip in footy on Friday night. You're going to look at that a little bit later at the Plasma, but let's take a look at Port's results in the last 11 matches. They've lost a number of close games. Here it is coming up. 3 wins and 8 losses in their last 11. Their average losing margin isn't significant, 17 points, and a number of those have been close matches where they just haven't been able to get it done. And on the weekend, some serious questions to answer for Port Adelaide. We will look at that in a bit more depth as the show goes on. But Bernie is at the Plasma for the Kia Top 7. It's home to Australia's best 7-year factory warranty. And what caught your attention this weekend?
Well, we've been a bit sad tonight with both teams losing, so I'm going to try and get a bit of energy in their place. So let's go. First of all, sprinklers at Norwood Open, mate. What? Did you see this?
Is this?
I mean, people in the crowd were getting wet. This is real amateur hour sort of stuff, this.
Well,
this is an SANFL game on a Friday
North Adelaide went with an extra in the finals. That's cheating.
That is cheating. What about this bloke? If he's from Broken Hill, he could even be closer than a fourth cousin.
Relation to you?
All you got to be is from there, second or third cousin. What about this? Your man, Chad Wingard, liking Port Adelaide losing.
They traded him for Burton.
That is...
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I didn't like this.
No.
I don't like when fans rip gear up or merchandise up.
Turn on your team.
Do it.
Support them.
Which leads me into this one.
No.
Who's
that clown?
This is real silly, this.
That's a
and
clown.
If that's a number 17, Guernsey, I'm coming after whoever did that. Find out who that was. No, there's this one. William Drew. This is one of my favourite parts of Saturday night. That is one of the courageous things you'll see on a footy field, which actually reminds me of my favourite courageous moment of all time. Now that is courage. Ladies and gentlemen, this is right
that is
there.
Courage. So Willem Drew has got out my highlights tape and he's copied it. Well done, young fella. Good stuff. Bernie, I'm going to get you one week. That was the Kia Top 7. Outstanding for Kia. Huge show coming up. We're going to take a look at some extraordinary game plan decisions from Don Pike and the Crows on Saturday night, and also Malcolm Blight a little bit later on. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Footy SA.
Our preparation's been good. We've got, as I said, we have a really healthy squad. They've got good training minutes under their legs, and they're ready to go. We see return to full fitness of guys like Brad Crouch, of Brodie Smith, of Taylor Walker, our captain, who was hobbled last year. Obviously, Rory Sloane with his foot hasn't missed a beat either, to name a few. So we're sitting with this really interesting squad that's there going, we can only play 22, but when you do the exercise and try and pick your best 22, and I'll challenge you to go home tonight and do it, who do you leave out and who do you put in if everyone's fit and available?
And the Kangaroos record their first win of 2019.
The reality is we didn't have a great deal of winners on the night, and we're not going to make massive wholesale changes on the basis of that. It's we need to look at the reason why we've got guys who we know are capable of performing better than they are and not performing, and that's that starts with me and conversations with them, and we need to get them into a headspace where they're capable of playing the footy they can play.
Well, let's look at what's going wrong for Adelaide, and it starts with Don Pike in the coach's box. I want to roll some vision from Saturday night. They had 36 entries, Adelaide, and this is why. This is Rory Sloane marking the ball with a one-on-one inside 50. Look at Eddie Betts, one-on-one. The worst task in football is defending Eddie Betts one-on-one in the forward 50. He doesn't go there. Why doesn't he go long? Instead, he goes inside to a big ruckman whose kicking isn't his strength, gives North Melbourne time to flood the numbers back. Once again, they go wide again. This is a critical stage of the game. You're down by a couple of kicks. You need to get going and play fast attacking footy. They go slow, they go wide, they go sideways. This happened time and time again. We'll see it again here. Matt Crouch will win the free kick here. His first instinct, 2 goals down, 8 minutes to go, is to go short and wide. Why are Adelaide going short and wide when the game is on the line? He's confused. You've got to roll on, make something happen. They make another mistake. They're wide. North Melbourne, far too easy to defend. And this is extraordinary. 6 minutes to go. Once again, game on the line. You need to win. You've got an experienced player who's in the leadership group. Where's he go? Well, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go wide to Talia. He's going to go wide. Jenkins down from the forward line playing there. And we have to speed this up because this is how long Adelaide take to move the footy. This happened time and time again. Eventually, long down the line, which is where they started. Far too easy to defend. Free kick against. Game over because Adelaide's game style was as poor as I've ever seen it. And Don Pyke, that's your responsibility and you need to fix that up. Also, Bern, want to look at the coaches around Don Pyke. They've made some changes in that space in the off-season. Does he have enough help around him? They brought in Matner and Godden from the Sandful.
Yeah, well, Ben Hart's been around a long time and he was coaching, you know, when I was still at the footy club. Mick Godden was a really good SANFL coach for a long time and had some success there. So, and Marty Matner's, he spent some time, I think, at Sydney with there too. So, I mean, there's a lot of experience around him. I think it's just, they need to just get back to playing that quick footy. I think they're playing a little bit safe and maybe they're playing safe because they're looking after themselves, hoping they get a game. They're the ones that keep getting a game next week.
So, I agree with you that Godden and Matner are good, exciting, up-and-coming coaches, but does he need a Brett Ratton? Does he need someone around him who's an experienced figure? I know Campo's got experience, he's been there for a while, but Don Pyke, in essence, is an inexperienced coach. He hasn't been doing it for a long time. What about a senior assistant that can oversee the program and give some feedback and some guidance to Pyke, who's clearly under big pressure?
He's an inexperienced senior coach, but he's been around. He spent a long time as an assistant at, I think he started at West Coast, went to Adelaide, and then went back to West Coast, had a little bit of time out of the game. So, I mean, he's been around a long time and he'd understand what's required. It's just getting the players on the same page as what the coaches need, because obviously they're not gelling at the moment, so something's happening.
There wasn't a lot of winners individually for Adelaide. Very interested in Bernie Vince's votes for Repco, your local mechanic with nationwide backing of Repco. Book your next car service at repcoservice.com. No 5?
No 5 again, mate, because I didn't think anyone was worthy of it. Rory Laird, I thought was the best for Adelaide, but only second. Brad and Matt Crouch, I think they've been in my votes every week because they just...
You're a big fan of Keith as well.
I just think he does the things that don't get noticed. I mean, if you went to the game and watched it, stats-wise, you probably wouldn't have Alex Keith in your best. But I think, well, the ball's coming in a lot and uncontested too for the opposition, so he's required and he's been very good.
It's not because he's a cricketer and you love cricket?
It is because he's a cricketer too, because he's made the switch good. I love cricket.
One of the more interesting parts of the show is Malcolm Blight's Hall of Fame. Who is the next inductee? Lucky you are with Amy. Lucky you're in Blighty's Hall of Fame. Who's number 4? Let's find out.
My first look at Andrew McLeod was in his first season of football at the Crows in 1995. I remember the game clearly. They were playing Hawthorn at Football Park and Andrew kicked a late goal to win the game for the Crows, which ironically became a bit of a theme of his whole career. After that game, I took a little bit of a notice on him, and obviously when I coached a couple of years later, he trained really hard that pre-season. It was probably first real fair dinkum pre-season. The other thing you notice with him, but as you're standing out there in drills as coach and a player, some blokes used to clomp pass, you know, really heavy-footed. With Andrew, he used to glide. You could hardly hear him.
Left foot goal!
Oh, don't tell me!
He's a superstar!
Don't tell me! The biggest game in town is the showdown between the Crows and the Power. And in '97, Port Adelaide won the first showdown. And in the second showdown, Andrew McLeod kicked a late goal in very, very wet conditions on a tight angle from about 35, 40 out that put the Crows in front and so therefore won the second showdown. Oh, thank you so much, Andrew.
McLeod, what a finish!
Andrew was virtually the perfect player. He could play half-back and stop them cold and then use the ball beautifully. He could play in the midfield and also played forward. In fact, kicked 6 goals in a final as a half-forward, won Norm Smith's medal in grand finals as a midfielder, and won Best and Fairest as a half-backer. What a player, the perfect player. Andrew McLeod, welcome to Blighty's Hall of Fame.
Hard to argue with that, Blighty. There's the top 4, all thanks to Amy. Lucky you're with Amy, Wanganeen, Hart, Corns and McLeod. Who's going to be next? We'll find out next week. And we'll find out next what went wrong for Port Adelaide against a depleted Richmond. Stay with us. You're watching Footy SA. You're watching Footy SA, doing it all thanks to Kia, home to Australia's best 7-year factory warranty, and OTR. Get in there because they're making life easy. Speaking of which, it's time now for Bernie Vince's OTR takeaway. Kick goals and tackle life problems close to the siren with OTR and their 24-hour convenience. What did Richmond do really well against Port Adelaide?
Well, I'm going to talk more about Port Adelaide's defensive transition from stoppage. They got smacked around the stoppage, and well, there was the lack of defensive transition. Have a look here. Richmond just waltzed out of this. Really poor here from Port Adelaide. Look at this. They don't even look interested. I mean, and Richmond are the next to the contest as well. So, I mean, coming up against West Coast is going to be no different this week. Guys like Yo, Gaff, Redden, Shuey, they're elite at this. So they can't sit off the stoppage like they are. They need to start maybe from a man or otherwise they're going to have to sit someone, maybe even sit someone behind the ball cane. So
yeah, I think that's the key. They kicked 7 goals from stoppage, Richmond, and Port Adelaide didn't have any help in defence. So maybe they can slide someone behind 50 to stop instances like this, Bernie, because they'll cut you up the Eagles Friday night.
When I talk about West Coast, this is just typical of them. Look at them get out the back. I mean, that ball bounces and bobbles around and it allows Fremantle to get back in. But if that sits that's a walk-in goal. And if Port Adelaide defend like they did around the stoppage and West Coast get their game going, it could be ugly. Could get real ugly.
An ugly night, and Ken Hinkley will have to address that after our training this week. After the game on the weekend, he was pretty honest about the team's performance.
We were saying through the week all the time, we knew what we were coming up against, and that's what happens. You know, you get set up and you've just got to be able to handle that, and we weren't able to handle that tonight. Still plenty to work for us to do, and you know, we've got a long way to go to become anything like the Richmond Football Club.
I think that comment disappointed a few Power fans. This is a second-string Richmond side, so you should be a side that's ready to go. Ken Hinkley's 7th year in charge. You win that game at home. I don't think there's any excuses to say that, well, they're a better footy club. That's not going to wash with a frustrated Port Adelaide supporter group. Yeah,
especially when we were talking him up so much about, you know, Ken Hinkley's said something and the Port Adelaide players have come out and done something. And since then, they beat Carlton, but they haven't really fired a shot since. So looking for a big response.
Yep, let's have a look at the votes. Couple of OK performances for Repco, your local mechanic with nationwide backing of Repco. Book your next car service at repcoservice.com. Just 3 players featured this week. Couldn't find a
5 or 4.
Definitely couldn't find a 4. Rockcliffe had plenty of it. Didn't think it was his most damaging game. Travis Boak, similar. And Brad Ebert in the forward line was OK. For the first time, we're going to take a look at the leaderboard after a month into the season. Let's find out who are the individuals that have been standing up this year from both clubs. We don't actually have that. We'll get that for you next week. What we do have, though, is Nathan Brown from Sportsbet. And for all AFL matches with Sportsbet, if your team goes 12 up at any break, you get paid out as a winner. Brownie.
Cornsey, I'd like to just mention that you picked Adelaide to win the premiership this year. They're not going that well.
Who did you tip?
We're going to have a big in-depth... I tip Richmond, but I don't reckon either of them are going to... Maybe they'll make the 8, but let's have a look at some of the markets because they have changed a fair bit. Now, this is for the top 8. Adelaide were $1.15 at the start of the year to make the top 8. A lot of people thought top 4, I included... Premiership man over here, thought, but at now $2.65, so now's the time to get up. If you think Adelaide is still going to make the finals, that is a big, big price. So too Port Adelaide. I think Port Adelaide make the finals. I think they win enough games. They're going okay. Let's have a look at the Brownlow medal market. Andrew Gaff has been the biggest mover, along with Lachie Neale. Lachie Neale was 51 at the start of the year. Gaff, 34 the day he played his first game, into 18, into 13. The next roll, and it is Eagles up against Power next week. Eagles super short at home, but Port Adelaide have a pretty good record over there in Perth, and the Adelaide Crows take on Gold Coast. Pretty short, as you'd expect, should get the job done. Gold Coast are going okay, but big issues if they don't win that game. Now, in that game, to get through to more disposals, Matty Crouch was $1.50 last week. He's now $1.67, so you're getting some pretty good value. Hasn't had it since round 1 when he had 40 disposals. So I reckon I'm going to be taking the Matty Crouch in all my multis this week. And the last thing we have is the head-to-head for the Geelong game on Monday. The Hawks are a big price. They've got a lot of injuries, a lot of players out. And the 12-up promo, is a ripper. If you had a backed Adelaide last week, you would have got paid out because they were 12 points up at half-time. Paid Adelaide out as the winner. As we know, they went on to lose the game.
Eddie Betts' 300th. What I want you to do is go
I backed
away
Eddie Betts for 3 goals on the weekend, so I was pretty happy.
Come up with an Eddie Betts special.
An Eddie Betts special?
5 goals and 15 possessions or something at Sportsbet and the Gurus down there. Find us a package for us and we'll talk about that.
Sounds good.
Next week, well done, Brownie, for Sportsbet. Coming up next, the clanger. Who made a shocking error on the weekend? Stay with us. That's coming up next. Good evening, welcome back to Footy SA. All thanks to Kia, home to Australia's best 7-year factory warranty, and OTR, kick goals and tackle life's problems close to the siren with OTR and their 24-hour convenience. Hey, Bernie, something did catch my attention on the weekend. Now we know Erin,
it's not about me again.
No, it's not. Erin Phillips is the best player in the country.
Best.
She is.
Best
well, she doesn't get her genetics from her mother clearly, because she went to social media to post this video of her mum, Julie, trying to kick a drop punt. And it wasn't great. It doesn't come off very well. Some sort of half torpedo there. So her dad, Greg, clearly passed on all the genetics. First tip is not to kick in thongs. So Julie, well done for giving birth to Erin, but the genetics from football didn't come from you.
I'm sure
clearly,
she's done more than just that.
The best bits from our show will be on the SEN app. Download that. You can catch up on tonight's show only on the SEN app. Get on there and download that today. Let's cast our minds forward to a couple of huge games on the weekend. Big round of footy in general, but Port Adelaide off to Perth to take on the Dockers. Going to be tough on Friday night.
Very tough, but when back's against the wall, you never know what can happen.
Not the Dockers.
West Coast, I didn't even know she said that, so that's how much I listen to UK. But no, I think West Coast will be too strong, but important that Port Adelaide put up a good fight and don't just throw the towel in early.
Yeah, well, you can win.
Do you give them any chance?
Yeah, I do, because you can see what a second-string Richmond side can do away from home with the right attitude and the right work rate. Eddie Betts is 300th. Gold Coast have never beaten the Crows, so they win easily.
They win easily, mate. I just want to talk about Crows' next 4 games. Gold Coast, St Kilda, Fremantle into the showdown. Could be 5-3, Adelaide.
They win all 3, and then it's a totally different story. See you next Monday night. Have a great week, everyone.